So this talk is situated within these three positions that I find myself in as a designer, an educator, and a musician. Make sure my camera is on. If I had to organize these in chronological order though, it would be that I was first I started out as a musician, then I became a designer, and now I'm an educator. So my journey started back in Liberia, West Africa. So I'll actually like to greet you all in my native language, Pele. So I know ngakumai, ngawa marmai, ankula Liberia. That simply means my name is Marmar, which is my nickname in my native language that my grandmother gave me. And Ankula Liberia means that I'll translate to I came from Liberia. So if you see this journey here, this is my journey. This was done in collaboration with other refugee students that also migrated from different countries to come here to America. So my journey started here in Liberia, and then I went to Ghana actually, and then from Ghana, then to Minnesota, then Georgia, then Rhode Island, North Carolina, and finally I'm here in Ohio. So I am one of several siblings. I have, I think, 6 sisters and 2 brothers. Most of my siblings are back in Liberia. Others are here with me now in Columbus. This data portrait kind of encapsulates my experience. I started with some immediate family at the top. That's my grandmother I'm hugging when I went back to Liberia for the first time in 13 years since I came to America. So as I mentioned earlier, my journey, that led me here actually started with music. When I came to America, I was very inspired by hip hop music and the art of storytelling in a way in which I could express myself through music. And so I started to learn music, and I didn't know anything about rhythm or flow or how to even produce or engineer songs. So I had to learn all of those. In the process, I wanted to be able to design and promote my music. So I started to do graphic design. And at that time, I didn't even know that what I was doing was a profession. Right? I just thought, oh, I'm just doing this to, to promote my music. And there, my name, my stage name earlier on the Coming to America CD that you see there was Young Fast. So I kind of, when I came, I also exposed to football. American football, and I remember Michael Vick being fast on the field, kind of running over everyone. And I said, well, he's fast. I want to be fast too. So I kind of adapted that stage name. And as I transitioned throughout my music experience, I adapted the name Future, right? Kind of reflective of a vision that I had for my future. But at that time, there was also a musician called Future that some of you might know of. So I said, well, if he's Future and he's in America, then I'm going to identify myself as Africa's Future. But when I say Africa's Future, it wasn't just like I'm Africa's Future, but collectively, as a group of people, that call Africa home, we are Africa's future. So the first CD that you see here really kind of like was like me telling a story of how I came to America and how came into recognizing my story, the story of my ancestors, and this new gift of talent that I found through hip hop music. And the next one on the right, called Tears of Isolation, was created when I was in at my HBCU. I was part of it's an organization called International Student Organization, or ISO. So I kind of use ISO to allude to isolation. And so I'm gonna play my latest song, just part of it. It's called Dear Black America. It was produced in response to some of the social uprising that took place following the murder of George Floyd and the protests that ensued. And I didn't know how to express myself. You know, I know a lot of designers was, you know, creating visual content to share on social media and going out to protest. And I didn't know how else to express myself than to do so through music. So I wrote this song as an ode to America and Black people in America, just to kind of encourage and inspire them. So yeah, I'm just gonna play it so you can listen to the words.
Yeah, Black America. Yeah, love, America.
Dear Black America, you are loved by your God, your creator. In this image you was made by your maker, saved by your savior, called to be great. I hate, can't break ya. Dear Black America, you are loved by your God, your creator. In this image you was made by your maker, saved by your savior, called to be great. I hate, can't stop ya. I feel your pain, I know your struggle, overcame change, but the weight double. I see you, I see God, to see you, to see trouble. Your blood royal, blood child of the soil, builder of nations, mastered the sciences of ancient Egyptians, chromatic, genetic, divine, authentic, they mimic your shine, prophetic, kinetic, your movement is kind, display your potential, speak with intention. Black lives matter, we shouldn't have to mention. I hate that you have to fight for your freedom, walk with Jamaica and take back Eden, the fruits of your labor, your garden will prosper, fist in the air, hold up your posture, no matter what the trial, gotta keep your head up, inspired by truth, I wrote you a letter, dear Black America.
So the words is, Dear Black America, you are loved by your God, your creator. In this image, it was made by a maker, saved by a savior, called to be greater. So I'm a person of faith. So oftentimes, you know, I try to make my music, you know, to be inspiring. I often don't do a lot of music. It often just, you know, I receive inspiration based on, you know, my present condition and things I'm going through. And you know, the words just kind of came to me naturally. As I said earlier, it was really my way of responding to what was going on. In like the second verse, I talk about, you know, like life in Africa and, you know, the origin of my ancestors and how oftentimes, you know, African Americans try to distinguish themselves from Africans, but when in a sense we are all one group of people. So I kind of allude to some of those in the second verse. The song is on YouTube if you want to watch it in its entirety. So when I came to America, you know, as a refugee, it was very hard for me to get into college. So it took me a very long time to acquire all my legal documentation to finally be able to go to school. And when I went to school, again, I was just going just to, in all honesty, I heard that when you go to school, you get like a refund check. So my friends encouraged me to go to school and I'll get like a refund check. So I went to College of the Albemarle. And there, when I first got there, I, you know, did like a design for like a competition. And, you know, through that competition, I was introduced to a supervisor that worked in the marketing department, for which I went to intern. And that was my really first experience with graphic design or design in general, that this is actually a profession. This is something that you can go to school for. So through like my active involvement in the college, they wrote this article about me, and I kind of just outlaid some of the challenges I also experienced trying to figure out who I was, my story, and what it is I wanted to do. In that process, I became part of this mentor group called Media. Really, you know, helped me form my identity to like this brotherhood of other African-American males that was experiencing similar challenges as I was experiencing. So they introduced, so they exposed us to possibilities. You know, we went to conferences, we went to different universities, just to experience, you know, what life was like outside of our community. And that exposure really, you know, helped inspire me and motivate me to say that I can become more than I am today, or more than I've been exposed to. And this was also my first time of kind of helping them create this, this visual identity for the organization. So there at COA, you know, the slogan or the tagline for the university at that time was "Opportunity changes everything." And I've really always held true to this mantra, you know, that when you're given the opportunity, they really do change, you know, your life around. So I tend to just see everything, whether it's challenging experiences, I tend to just view those as opportunities. and thus, use it as a leverage, to improve or to learn from. So when I left COA, I then went to HBCU, Elizabeth City State University. At this time, they were already well aware of the work I was doing at COA. I was always active in the community. So when I got there, they already had me scheduled to be the marketing intern there, where I created, some of these visuals that you are seeing here for the university. It really, really transformative in that, I was among, people that looked like me, my instructors looked like me, they sounded like me. So that experience was very enriching in helping me to really solidify my identity as a African-American male. And as I mentioned, I was involved in the community. So each year during my stay there, I would work with the police department, the university, and local barbers to organize a back to school bash, where we give kids free backpacks and school supplies and also free haircuts. So this was just my way of being engaged in the community. From there, I went to, I feel like at ECSU, I knew about design and I knew how to use the Adobe software and applications, but I still didn't know why, right? Why I was making certain design decisions. I just knew how, but the why wasn't there. So when I got done, when I graduated, I knew that I wanted to go to grad school. So I applied to NC State and then some other institutions. And I actually, at that time when I graduated, COA, they had a job opening that I applied for. And I just knew, that they had written a story about me, I interned there. I just knew that I would get this job. And in a way that if I got the job, then I wouldn't have gone on to grad school. But, I didn't get the job. And I think it turned out to be the best for me because then I was able to go to grad school where I really learned about design research, why to the decision I would make as designers. So one of the projects that really exposed me to design, community-based design was Retrace Raleigh, where we...
The traces of historic Raleigh are quickly being replaced by new developments.
Yeah, so this project really exposed me to the design process and also collaboration. At ECSU, I was often working on individual projects by myself, or the project wasn't very extensive. It was just like a one-off kind of project where we're not really creating a holistic system. So this was my first kind of taste of design as the system, or design in collaboration with other designers, right? So we're trying to find a way in which we can enrich the experience here at the Pope House Museum in Raleigh, North Carolina. And these were just some of the deliverables. We kind of came up with this system where you can view it to take a look at historical sites of historic Raleigh and be able to see historic images of modern buildings or modern spaces. And then in grad school, I, for the most part, very interested in how Africans and African Americans was represented, in advertisement. I remember being there. There were several instances where some of these ads would come out where you had this before and after, of the African American lady being a before and the Caucasian lady being an after, or this places on image where it's in a portable white is coming. But then, it seemed as if the white figure is in power, and then this one where this clean shaved African-American male, he's throwing away his afro. So I'm very, intrigued and sometimes angered by how, Black people was represented in advertisement. So I try to figure out a way in which, I could contribute through design to address these issues. So, for like a whole semester or so, the provocation I was somehow exploring was, how might an ethical standard of practice encourage designers to become aware of the cultural and social implications of their work. So at the time I was exposed to the work of Cheryl D. Miller. I wrote some AIGA article, kind of addressing the state of Black design, and kind of saying, kind of prompting like what is missing, in design if there's such little input, from the largest of American minority groups. So what are we missing in graphic design by not having Black voices at the table? And here, these are just some of those images, historically and even modern, that was being represented African Americans, males and female, in like a negative, stereotypical way. So I kind of, propose a way in which some of those visuals can be reconstructed, and this is just an example of those.
Century, doing something mean to it, do it better than anybody you ever seen do it. Screams from the haters, got a nice ring to it. I guess every superhero need his theme music. No one man should have all that power. The clock's ticking, I just count the hours.
So that would just be responding to, how can we reimagine, like if as an African American designer, if I was at the table, how would my perspective, influence some of those design decisions? So those are just some examples of me trying to iterate and ideate ways in which those ads have been reimagined. And I wanted to figure out also, can we create something that can assist designers in the process to help them reflect on decisions that they're making, how their values and beliefs and biases are informing, the design solution that they're coming up with. So inspired by this Flourishing Business Canvas, I created a ethical design canvas that will kind of be used by designers in process to help them, document, right, the project objective, the client's values and the services that they're offering, and then also reflecting on you yourself as a designer. What are your morals, right? What are your values, and how does this holistic picture now inform the type of approach you take to creating your specific design solutions? And then I thought, well, even sometimes, as designers, we might overlook certain things in the process. So how can businesses create like this, an approach of evaluating work before it is disseminated in the public? So I created like this ethical review framework in which I suggested like businesses hire what is called a cultural liaison that kind of have knowledge of that target audience. And they will kind of help facilitate this last review process of every advertisement that is being marketed. And they'll have input from the audience, have input from the designers, and then based on information that they've gathered on those specific communities that they're targeting, they'll help designers to make more appropriate or ethical decisions. So it's kind of like, a final review stage where you go through to make sure that you're not putting out any advertisements that kind of depict or is stereotypical of a specific group of people. And all of those was, at this time I was struggling to say, so why is there not some type of standard of practice or code of ethics, like they have in medicine or in architecture, that kind of guide the practice of graphic designers, right? It was very hard. Of course, we have like the First Things First manifesto and, the later iteration of 2000 and then most recently the 2020. But all of those seem so far away from us. And in most cases, based on your economic status, you really couldn't abide by some of those guidelines, right? If they say don't design this type of product, but yet, you are a struggling artist or a struggling designer, and you really need to have the finance to sustain your life. In any cases, you might, kind of go astray from those guidelines or those ethics. So I thought it was more appropriate for within our individual cohort of designers to create one that, that really responded to our needs and our understanding and ways in which we can approach design more ethically. So I did a workshop with one of my colleagues that's on right now, Victoria Gerson, where we conducted a workshop with our cohorts to kind of help them construct our own code of ethics. So this is just a brief sample of it. I won't put the whole thing. You can watch it in its entirety on my website.
We the undersigned
are designers
who have come together
to create the following manifesto
and pledge to adhere to its values and principles.
We urge all our fellow professionals,
students, and educators to read this document,
reflect upon this argument,
and be encouraged to implement its values within their work.
We believe the practice of graphic design
has the responsibility of ethically moving society forward
and passing on an enduring legacy of goodwill to future designers.
We are responsible.
We are responsible for following our mutually agreed upon contract.
We are responsible for those who are directly,
indirectly,
and tangentially impacted by design.
So, like I said, just for the sake of time, I'm just going to show you a little bit. But really, it was like this holistic approach where we had them review existing design, products and services, and evaluate what are the ethical implications of those designs, right? And then what can we learn from some of these to then inform how we construct our own code of ethics. And then during the summer of, I think it was the year before I graduated, summer 2018, I interned at an organization called Bull City at Duke University, where they wanted to find a way in which they can archive this portable, this traveling exhibition online. So they had like these different panels that kind of alluded to, or provide information of housing inequality in Durham, North Carolina, and want to figure out a way in which they can put this online. So I created like this very extensive, I think it was at least like 50-page website for them to be able to house the exhibition, and I wanted for each to be unique. And as you saw also in the video I shared earlier, they had like subtitles. So when I'm creating this design solution, I wanted to be very inclusive to people that might have certain type of impairment, whether it's hearing or vision impairment. So so one of the things we added on the website was an audio bar where you can be able to listen to the information that's on the website. And also a way in which we can guide the user or the individual through the experience so they don't have to go through each individual page. So we're gonna have at the bottom there this navigation component that kind of you can just click on, and it guides you through the exhibition. This was, so that was like part of my design practice. But as I kind of went in grad school and realized, wow, I know I want to teach. I had gone to Africa. I often share this story. You probably heard it before. Where I went to Africa, back to Liberia after nearly 13 years, and I realized that what I was learning in school wasn't necessarily applicable to me addressing Marcus. What I was learning in school wasn't necessarily applicable to some of my interests and ways in which I wanted to help my country. So when I came back, I very much got interested in social impact design. And at that time, my mentor and later on thesis chair, Derek Ham, was creating this I'm a Man VR experience. And we did a class project where the students had to explore how can we implement a virtual reality system within a museum space. So I'll share a quick video of the I'm a Man VR experience, and I'll highlight how the students took on this challenge of implementing the project within the National Civil Rights Museum in Memphis.
I have some very sad news for all of you, and that is that Martin Luther King was shot and was killed tonight in Memphis.
This VR experience transports you to Memphis during the Civil Rights Movement. It's called I Am a Man, and it's developed by NC State University Assistant Professor Dr. Derek Ham. The experience involves a series of short vignettes set during the 1968 sanitation workers' strike. The Memphis sanitation force at the time was mostly black and given the lowest paying jobs and were refused equal workers' rights. The VR experience gets its name from the iconic signs that protesters held in the streets.
I Am a Man was a slogan that was used and actually printed out on protest signs of these sanitation workers in Memphis who were protesting, wanting better pay, wanting equal rights on the job force. And that was the thing that brought Dr. King down to Memphis in the first place to support these men right before, of course, the tragic end of his life and the assassination at the Lorraine Motel.
Sometimes, you would get threats you know, go back to work and this kind of thing. Because it's all the same thing, you know. They were saying our strike was illegal, but all they were saying, still segregation and this kind of thing. All it means is a man is not a man.
Those simple words, right, still made people very upset. You have to kind of take a step back and wonder, and even be reflective about even Black Lives Matter movement. They can call horrible names, all these thugs and these people and this, and like really, all they're really saying is Black Lives Matter. They're not saying your life doesn't matter. You look back at I Am a Man, and there were still people who pushed against these workers and were angry. You know, that shows that there's something that's seriously wrong with America still.
The VR experience also lets you witness those protests up close. The experience is narrated using actual recordings of one of the sanitation workers, Taylor Rogers.
Well, they didn't have any white sanitation workers. They dealt with the bulldozers and those big cranes and things.
I'm thinking about today, 2018, how much of it would still work today. You know, a bunch of men coming together saying, we care about something and we're going to take action. I won't take a knee during the anthem. Oh, it's outrage, crazy. Any protest is going to disrupt people, and they're going to make a group of people upset. So at a certain point, you just have to keep plowing, and you have to keep letting your voices be heard, and we have to keep creating content to retell their stories and to empower next generations.
The 15-minute experience also features archival footage and photos that the players can interact with up close.
But it'd be great for the person, the non-Black VR user, to look and realize they're talking about me. I think that's a game changer. Instead of it just always being about, oh, they're talking about someone else.
Well, it's just not the things we're used to down here. I mean, they come in.
Okay, so Derek let me know that he's currently working on a mobile version of the I'm a Man, so they can be able to experience it on your mobile device and standalone headsets. So when the National Civil Rights Museum in Memphis, saw that experience, it won like several awards. They wanted to implement the experience within the exhibition at the Civil Rights Museum. So they had this class that Derek was teaching at that time, for which I was a TA, to design different proposals of ways in which we can create or we can install this VR experience within the Civil Rights Museum. So this is the Civil Rights Museum. It is the location that MLK got assassinated. We had a chance to go there after the project was developed. It was just so enriching, right, to have all of this cultural, historical experiences. I remember sitting at one of the they have like this space slave ship exhibition where you kind of hear the sounds and of kind of like a simulation of you actually being on one of those slave ships. And I remember sitting there just, feeling the emotions, right, of what it would have been like, to be one of those slaves. And it also have like the actual I'm a Man exhibition. So we didn't want to necessarily like replicate what they already had, but find a way in which we can enhance or augment the exhibition with the virtual reality experience. So the students, first they had to be exposed to, who the sanitation worker was, what led to the strike, and how MLK got involved, and what was some things that happened before his assassination, the uprising after his assassination, and then they had to learn about the history of the museum and understand, from the design perspective, the branding of exhibition, and so that with this information, that they can create something that complements, right, what was already there. During the process, they'll have interviews with the museum staff to understand, what the expectation was, the branding direction of the museum staff, and where the exhibition should be placed. It was very hard for them to know exactly where to place the exhibition. So we had like the layout of it earlier on. So I created like this VR space where they can actually be in Memphis in a museum to kind of see how the design will be implemented. So we kind of use VR as like a prototyping medium while they were creating the experience. These are just some of the proposals within VR, but to kind of imagine what it would be like, to actually have this exhibition in place. You know, so not only did we use VR to kind of create this cultural experience, you know, that you get to travel back in time, but in a way we're kind of using VR to kind of showcase what things could be like, right? What would the museum be like once you have installed this this exhibition? So we're gonna have, you know, visitors, you know, augmented in a virtual space. These are just some of the student design proposals. Okay, and this was like the layout of the space. So the goal wasn't just to take a VR headset and put it in the exhibition, but figure out how you can actually create a holistic journey, right? Most of the visitors are not quite exposed or aware of the sanitation worker strike or MLK involvement. Even those that may be aware of those content, they might not know how to use VR or what VR is. So therefore the pre-experience part of the exhibition really introduce visitors to like the content or the historical significance of the project, but also about the technology, right? This is how you use VR, how you use a controller, how you navigate the space. And also understand that this was a very emotional experience. How do we have the visitor create a space where they can better reflect, right, after they have left the VR experience? So kind of like this pre, during, and after experience was what the students were really considering. Just gonna go through this. So as you can see here, there's like a layout, a mock-up of one of those experiences, where in the beginning they kind of introduced the visitors to, you know, the history of the sanitation workers, and then they're introduced to VR, and then in a little space here is where the actual exhibition took place. Okay. And I also had to consider, you know, ticketing and branding of it, and this was like graphic design students, you know, so it was quite, you know, amazing for them to also consider, you know, things that architectural students or interior design students would consider, you know, such as, you know, decorations on the wall, but also more specific to that discipline, you know, the branding and how they can visually hold the exhibition together through like the pre-experience and also the during and after, and also information on social media and signage and so forth. And these are just some of the virtual models or renditions of the environments. This was actually the team that that the museum chose to go with. They really appreciated like those the architectural rendering, and also having those boxes at the top that have like "I'm a man." So it wasn't necessarily like something that graphic designers did that made them win, but how they kind of really thought as like interior designers or architects, you know, that really set that design apart from the others. And this was just a exhibition that we kind of put together to kind of showcase the experience of the students' work at the African American Cultural Center at NC State. And with the winning team, we got a chance to go to Memphis, doing MLK 50th anniversary to showcase the experience to people. It was, you know, it was emotional for some because most of them have lived in Memphis, you know, for a very long time. To actually be able to go back in time to experience, you know, historically events that have now shaped their future today, you know, just quite empowering as well as emotional. And this is another project apart from the I'm a Man, in which I collaborated with the College of Humanity and Social Science at NC State to create a historical experience for you to relive the MLK Philadelphia Jail speech that he gave at White Rock Baptist Church in North Carolina. So when I came on the project, I already created a prototype of the VR experience, and my role then was really to just enhance the user experience within the virtual reality space. So one of those was making sure that we added these realistic animation or gestures to MLK. So we had a performance actor put on like this mocap suit where we recorded his movement and then mapped those to the virtual character of MLK. And we also had like the different perspective. The sound that you heard of the experience was based on where you're positioned within the sanctuary. So if you were at the balcony, you heard more of the congregation versus if you were closer to the pulpit where you heard, you know, his speech more clearly. And one of the things I considered earlier on, as mentioned earlier about accessibility, like how can we, this experience is, you know, is primarily for those that, you know, that have, you know, hearing, that can hear the speech, right? That have full hearing, and those that may have hearing impairments wouldn't necessarily be able to engage in that experience since it's so auditory. So I consider how can we implement subtitles within the experience and not just overlay, right, the subtitles in a VR space, because it's actually 3D as opposed to a, you know, a 2D screen. So one of the things we considered was creating like these pamphlets, right, that would have historically been in the sanctuary anyway. So what if they have like these pamphlets that you can pick up, and when you pick up the pamphlet, you get to actually be reading, right, the transcript on the pamphlet itself, instead of just embedding the subtitle within the virtual space. And also we consider like sign language for those that might, you know, want to kind of have this kind of experience, just to make it more inclusive of different audience. So we recorded sign language, and then we kind of embedded within the experience that you can toggle on and off. And let me see if I have time here. So I'm just gonna quickly go through now my my thesis project that I've, you know, did for like my final semester at NC State. But I was just kind of looking at how can we implement, you know, XR or, you know, mixed reality system within house museums, kind of like with this experience of working on I'm a Man and then the VMK projects. So I saw that, you know, we're using VR to preserve history or to relive history. But prior to these experiences, you know, house museum really did this already, right? You can go into a house museum, you can re-experience what it was like, you know, at a given time in history, where it kind of like really help preserve those, not just the identity or the lived experience of the homeowners, but also the larger community within which they lived. Okay, so they're about, house museum are about 10 to 15% of all house museum, yet they play such an integral role in preserving history and preserving culture. Unfortunately, like the Pope House Museum, many house museums around the world in America are currently dying due to the lack of support. And oftentimes, you know, there's not really an incentive to go back to the house museum once you've been there already. So as a reason, there's not really, you know, much community support to keep these spaces alive. So this is a quote with one of the directors of the Riley Museum, you know, kind of encapsulating the reason why, you know, it was important to kind of take on this project. And these are some of the reasons: the lack of support, it's immutable, it's the same day after day, year after year. And also they emphasize educational activities, you know, instead of seeing this space as a place for also leisure, where you might just go to just experience or socialize with friends and family. And also the challenge of implementing new technology, unlike, you know, different type of museums where they might, you know, be able to easily adapt these new technology into those spaces. House museums are meant to preserve history, right? So if a VR experience wasn't part of that time, then you can actually just put a headset in there. So it's a challenge of implementing these new technology into those historic spaces. So my research question was essentially, you know, how do we, you know, do this in a more effective and meaningful way, right? To be able to tell also and also in house museum, the stories are often told from the perspective of the curators, right? But how do we add a multiple narrative to the space using, you know, augmented or virtual reality? And then how do we expand the history of the home to a larger community within which the person lived? And then can that experience be adapted to different needs and reasons why someone might want to visit these historic spaces? So I did interviews, observational studies, I created personas and prototypes, you know, some design methods just to understand the context and the problem space that I was exploring. These are some of the personas I created. You know, a history teacher might have a different purpose for going to the museum versus, you know, a grad student that's more interested in the cultural anthropology of the 20th century. And I adapted these different frameworks to kind of situate my solution. So the virtuality continuum kind of lay out different modes of VR experience, from the real world all the way to the virtual. So AR or augmented reality is when you overlay the real world with virtual artifacts. Augmented virtuality is when you take in real world content and then bring those into the virtual space, such as 360 videos, or using texture from the real world to then design virtual environments and assets. And the virtual environment is like when you're fully immersed in like this synthetic virtual space. I also adapted the experiential value framework that just categorized different attributes of experiences and different elements that you should consider when you're creating this type of experience to keep the person or the individual engaged in the experience. So I really adapted the intrinsic values, this idea of playfulness, and the aesthetics, how the environment itself is designed to kind of keep the person engaged within the experience. And then I adapted also finally the mobile media alignment framework. I really serve as a guide for creating user-centered AR experiences. Okay, so you have the contextual alignment, the spatial alignment, and the location alignment. So location is where the augmentation takes place, and the spatial alignment is just extending the user's or the individual perception beyond what they can see in an immediate location. And the contextual alignment is just adapting to the user's behavior pattern to suggest different modes of interaction or engagement within the experience. So I combine all of those into like this matrix to kind of say, what would AR and location look like? What would AR and spatial look like? And so forth. And then hybrid is kind of like a more involved method that kind of really blends the virtual and the physical environment. So these were, and I kind of created this prototype of an AR application where for like location alignment, I'm saying, in the museum, they have like these spots to observation, like the piano, where visitors will often gather around to learn about the history of the home. So I thought that was like a prominent location in the home that you can augment, these images for the homeowners themselves to be able to tell their own stories, right? So spatial alignment here. Oftentimes you'll see visitors at the window trying to look outside to see if they can actually see the historical environment. Of course, they have not been gentrified. So can we create like this augmented lens that can have them kind of get a peek into history, so kind of extending that perception, that visual perception beyond what they can currently see. And then contextual alignment, and I'll just kind of finding ways in which they can also be able to craft or choose the type of experience that they want to have, whether they want to be like guided through the experience, or whether or not you want to be able to follow this impromptu or free mode within the virtual space. And then for hybrid, I'm considering how can we have like these artifacts, because in museum spaces, oftentimes you can't really hold or you can't touch the artifacts. So can we create 3D printed versions of some of the artifacts in the home that you can be able to physically hold, because that sense of touch also give you more information, than just observation or watching or looking at objects like, in closed case. So I printed these objects they can hold, and then when you look at it through your phone, it kind of augment the actual artifact, but you have like this sense of physical touch. And then also can you put like the homeowners themselves back in the home so that they themselves can be able to tell their own stories. So this will be kind of experimental ways in which we can augment the people themselves within the virtual space. We're kind of run out of time, so I'm just gonna quickly go through some of these. These are just me kind of breaking down each of those components I just mentioned earlier. Okay, I usually tested the experience with visitors, with museum docents, with community members, with friends and families, and then really got the feedback. So here I'm just, augment. It was very important for me to not just create a mock-up of what the experience could be, but to actually prototype it so that people can actually interact with it in real time. So I created this AR application using Unity for like an Android device to have people actually test the different type of interactions. And then I revised based on our input, this more refined approach of how the application itself can be designed.
Meet Natalie,
I'm
a 24.
Not gonna go through the video, but essentially I just wanted to say, can we make this experience to be in real time, where if you go there in the morning, what you see on the table reflects you know, what the home would have been like at that time of the day. If you go there in December, where it's Christmas, you kind of see the house being designed, you know, of how the homeowner themselves would have, you know, approach Christmas time, right? So it's kind of like how it's become like a living thing, you know, through the lens through which you are kind of seeing or experiencing, you know, the home, right? If it was up to me, I would have said we can just kind of empty, you know, put all the artifacts, you know, in somewhere else, and then kind of create these 3D printed object that you can actually hold. But then it, you know, if it's like a VR mode, kind of location-based VR with the entire house, right, kind of come alive in like the virtual space. But really, essentially, it was like based on the time of the day, you kind of receive different information so that, you know, it's changing over time instead of just being so stagnant and immutable. Okay, so I kind of, you know, consider like future possibilities of how, you know, the limitations of my project. It was primarily based on, you know, handheld AR device, but what if this was like a virtual reality experience, and where those that might not be able to move around through like, you know, mobility issues, they can still be able to put on the headset and still get a tour of the home through like these location-based VR exhibition. And then how can they, you know, facilitate more interaction between the different visitors instead of me just kind of looking through my phone the whole time. So when I graduated and fortunately enough to get a job here at the Department of Design, I applied to several conferences where I got a chance to present my research project. This is me in Budapest, Hungary, kind of showcasing my research work at the ZipScene conference. I later went on to the International Conference of Virtual and Augmented Reality Systems in Australia, Sydney, Australia, to showcase my work among these amazing individuals. And then this is now, I'll just conclude here like an overview of some of my class work and how I've been informed by my lived experiences and also research. Before I came, this picture was taken like the summer of 2019, where I led high school students and kind of introduced them to like emerging technology and how to create these VR experiences. These are like just snippets of different projects that I've done here at OSU, where I also teach motion graphics to students in the design department. And then I also teach graduate courses on creating AR and VR experiences. This is one of the students visualizing, this verb using motion graphics. And then this is another student project where they are trying to kind of continue my what I did for my thesis, find ways in which we can be able to visualize or preserve culture. In this case, they are creating a VR experience of a tea ceremony from Japan to kind of help, not just preserving the tangible culture or what you see, but also the intangible culture of like, a tea ceremony, and how do you emerge, people in this type of culture. And then as an extension, I worked with Equality Lab to find ways in which we can preserve historic Havana for senior citizens in Miami. So I collaborated with, I really believe in collaboration. So I worked with Huaming Wang from computer science and engineering. So where designers and developers worked on this experience to create a VR simulation. I kind of took it back in time, inspired by I'm a Man, to experience 1950 Cuba. And then for another project, students also work with Save the Children to create an experience for policymakers to understand what it's like, the plight of being in a school that have not been burned down, and now you having to go through all these consequences as a result of not being able to go to school. This project is currently continuing development, where I'm working with Maya and another VCD student, Callie, and Catherine from the Dean program, where we are still kind of extending this project because we feel like it's very impactful, and the stories, can really help create policies, that will expose policymakers in Africa and also around the world for the struggles and challenges that African students often go through, on a daily basis. I've worked quite a bit with Equality Lab on those two projects that I just mentioned. But also when COVID came, we wanted to explore ways in which we can make VR more accessible. So we kind of adapted this web-based approach where we wanted to use Mozilla hubs to create experiences that are more accessible. So we have like this team of international developers. You know, this is like my avatar in the front. We also have Tara from visual communication design here. And then in the back, we have Ming Hao from computer science. And then we have some other designers from France that also work with us to create like simulations that will expose students to different career paths. And thus we created like these avatars that they can be able to embody while they're going through this experience. And right now, a project I'm working on is with Amy Young from Art and Technology, I believe, from the College of Art, where we are trying to create an experience that will help people embody different sort of creatures. So I'm just gonna play a quick video of that experience, and I'm almost done here, and I can take questions.
All right, so yeah.
I don't actually see the power.
It says, yeah. Also, you don't see it.
I'm Amy Youngs, and I'm going to be talking about a project called Belonging to Soil, which is an organically emerging collaborative project. It has quite a few team members now. It started with just myself and Mayan McClan over the summer as an internship project that we were doing. And it really started to grow, and we met Shadrach Addy and wanted to have his participation in the project. We needed some 3D modeling and animation, so we also invited Luke Stevens into the project, and more recently have found a fantastic interaction designer, JT Thrash. So we're excited to talk about the inspirations and the early parts of the project to where we are now. The real inspiration for the project comes from the springtail and the wonder of this kind of incredible creature that can use its body to catapult into hyperspace using this little apparatus at the back end called a furcula.
So for the sake of time, I'm just going to give Jeff this video, and he'll just embed it on the UAS website so that we can be able to watch these at your own time. I'm just going to conclude here by playing a music video that I just recorded. So I started with music, so I'm gonna conclude with music. This really kind of encapsulates, my cultural ties to my community here in Columbus, where I collaborated with this musician from my church to create this video. It's kind of like an ode to Liberia.
Yeah, how you doing, man? Yeah, right here to the African store. I'm picking up some African food for our July 26th program. Yeah. But see you there, yeah? All right, ma.
Mama kule, mama kule, mama kule, mama kakule, 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 mama Liberia, 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 mama kule, mama kakule, mama inge kakule mao, 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 mama kule, mama kakule, mama kakule, mama kakule. Kalapa kwaniya, kalapa imeka, kalapa kwaniya, kalapa imeka.
LIB, my sweet home, my birthplace where I got grown. It's been long, but I pray to God I'll be in it again. Very soon, I'm young now. Punya the car, got where I knew it, got where I knew it. I'm young now. Punya the car, got where I knew it, got where I knew it. I got go out my God, good get. I got go out my God, good get. Nothing like my homeland. When we meet again, we're all there. dance, celebrate and hold hands in unity and equality. We stand.
We love you, Mama, Mama Liberia.
We love you, sweetie.
Okay, so I'll again give Jeff the link. They can get a link to and watch the rest of the video. But that is indeed my design life. And oh, there's no sound, Gabe is saying. Okay, it's fine. You'll get a chance to listen to those later on. So I'll stop here. If you have any questions, you can let me know now. I can better address more of those in depth. So Jeff, I'll just give you, I think there was no sound for some of the videos that I played. So I'll give some of those with you earlier.
So I'm reading one of them right now, Shadrach, so that I can say it to you. You can't see the Q&A, is that right?
No, I can see it now. But if you want to just kind of facilitate that, you can go ahead and read it.
All right.
All right, so Marianne is saying, of course, I really appreciate, my colleagues here in the Department of Design and Marianne for really giving me this opportunity. It means so much to me and my family to be in this position. So I just want to, extend my gratitude once again, publicly of how I'm very grateful, to be in this position. So thank you all. But Marianne is saying, Cedric, I came to your talk from a meeting in which Miriam writes, element, quote, it's hard to be what you can't see, was shared. Hearing you say how important it was for you to attend HBC where the other students and the teachers were also mostly Black really resonates as a follow-up. Can you say a bit more about the impact of mentors in your own development? It was so integral, to have at Elizabeth City State University, the mentorship of my my marketing department supervisor at that time to really help me, because she had already been exposed to design. She'd been working with, these amazing agencies. So just having her input, kind of guiding me to create design that are, usable at a larger scale was just an invaluable experience. And then also my instructors at that time, right, sharing that experience with me, one of them, Clarence guys, how when he went to college, it was very hard for his teachers and his cohorts to understand why he was doing his thesis on HBCUs. So that experience was so invaluable. And then I get to NC State, and Derek was just, he just took me under his arm. At that time, I think I was like the only African-American male or African-American in my program initially, right? And so having someone else there, that looked like me and shared my experience and, just kind of guided me, exposed me to, this medium of virtual reality, exposed me to ways in which I can, leverage different opportunities that my university offer. And even this job right now, right, it was him that sent this opportunity to me, to apply here and really just coach me through that whole process, right? Do this, now do this, now do this, right? He'll push back on certain things I have, something like that challenged me, so up to today, I really, look up to him and his mentorship. So I think it's extremely valuable. When I got here, Brian Stone was leaving, even though I just met with him briefly, some of his words of encouragement and things I should consider while I'm here and ways in which I can make this experience more enriching was also very invaluable, right? But it's not just mentors that look like me, that have inspired me. I've been inspired by people that's outside of my community, right? Miriam is one of them. My colleagues here, Susan and I, have kind of started to collaborate on a lot of projects and the way in which you think and approach design through social impact. It's similar work I'm doing. So it's not just people that look like me that have inspired me. In most cases, I've often been given opportunities by people outside of my communities. So mentorship is very important, but and it's important that it also come from people that look like you, that share your experiences, but it can be just as valuable from people outside of the community. So thank you for giving us space to elaborate more on that, Marianne. So Jeff, I see we are over time and we don't have extra questions. So I would send you all the videos that I shared that maybe the audio didn't play. and then you can have those just embedded within the part of the exhibition website.
Yeah, Shedrick, when we get the recording for this, I will timestamp it with some information, some interesting moments within it, and so that people can scrub back and forth to see some things again if they've already watched it, or if they haven't, to be able to understand what things are coming up. It will be transcribed as well. And then most importantly, a lot of these links that you embedded in your talk, we'll pull those out and have those separate, and they'll show up on the exact same page where you registered for this event. They'll just hold that position for the rest of this exhibit. So fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. I want to encourage you to, let me share my screen one more time so I can share some of the other events that we have coming up. So please go to the US website and, watch some of the things that we've already done in the past, but also we have some more activities coming up tomorrow. And then next week, Suzanne and I are working with a colleague in Brazil to do like a social impact webinar to kind of break down the definition of social impact and having share experiences that they have done together. And then next week, Tuesday and Thursday, students from Brazil and students from here in my class will be collaborating on a design charrette. So that will be done Tuesday and Thursday, and then the following Tuesday. You'll be able to attend live to kind of watch the student collaborate and work in real time as they propose solutions to specific issues that we'll disclose next week. So please, make yourself available to attend some of these events that is coming up. And we'd love to continue to have the conversation with you either on the Zoom platform or social media or whatever else space is you might find us. So thank you so much again, Jeff, and my committee members for organizing this event today. And I'm very excited to continue working with you all as we move forward with our exhibition. Will is asking, Will is saying something. It's been inspiring to see how you've woven together so many types of media and culture together. Is there an AR or VR music video on the horizon? Some creative collation? I think that would be so interesting. Well, there's like I kind of did like a talk recently. It's like a talk show where they interview me in VR, right? So and I pretty much went through like these experiences with the host in VR, and that really inspired me. Like if they're having talk shows in VR, what else can be done? And of course, the goal is not to replicate what we can do in the real world. So what do VR add to music video that you couldn't get through 2D or the different ways of creating these type of videos, right? So can it be spatial, interactive, where the participant is also part of the experience? Maybe they are one of the instruments in the music, so based on how they move, right? One of the projects I didn't talk about was Panasonic that Fede and I worked on. It should be available on ACAD website soon. We will also add a link there where we experiment with different ways in which you can visualize music, right, in a virtual space, where you kind of become almost like the controller in this 3D dimensions. So definitely, I think it'll be cool to kind of experiment with ways in which we can integrate. It took me a very long time to even tie music into design. And one of my approach right now is really like improvisation. So like music, we tend to freestyle or respond to uncertainties as we flow, so they call it. So how can some of those approaches be adapted to design? So it took me a very long time to try to see how I can incorporate music within my design practice. So now the next stage is how can I now emerge technology, VR and AR, with both design and music. So I think that's something I'll definitely explore moving forward. All right. So thanks, everybody. I want to hold you up. If you have any questions, you can just contact me by email, and I'll be happy to. I'm very open to collaboration. So if you have any interesting project that you're working on that you would like my input, or collaboration with, just let me know, and I'll be happy to work with you.